and that's immediately gone there. And Kane sort of sitting inside the natural of his opponent saying, come in, come in.
And Kane is finally going to work on that probe count advantage, and with more and more mutas coming out, no Stargate anywhere near. He does have Blink, he does have the upgraded Stalkers, but I think the muta count's big enough, and he has now jumped to a 30 Harvester lead, plus the 4 bases, the 4 gas income. I think Kane has finally taken control of this game. He's kind of had control of it, but it's been very tenuous, and he's been making really kind of strange, in my opinion, really strangely aggressive decisions, but it has worked out well here. That Roach run by, I think, was really the nail in the coffin. That was what allowed him to keep Minigun off balance enough that the mutas could kick in. They could start to get this muta flock up, and now he has just complete control of everything, and Minigun's just going to try and all in here. No way it works. And this is going to be his last-ditch attempt.
Yeah, his small army's moving across. He's not even going to have +3, actually, unless he chrono boosts it before he makes contact with the natural there. Massive run-by, and a huge Mutalisk flock is now gutting the economy of Minigun. There's very little left. 72 workers killed here by Kane. A massive number there as he goes in. And Kane already has spines up ready to go against this kind of force. They will melt, but they will delay the force for a little while. So, here it is. This is Minigun's last stand in this particular map. The Lings are coming in from behind here. Where is the force field? There's actually very little of it. The force fields go down, which is kind of enough to keep this alive. Minigun continues to push forward. He doesn't really have an economy to back this up, so warpins are going to be very limited. The third base just got absolutely ravaged here by Kane, who refuses to bring his Mutalisks back. He believes he can actually hold this.
Really strange decision there to just bring the Lynx back out, but then Minigun messes up and discarnates all of his Stalkers, so GG. I guess that's that. If he had managed to keep his army together, he maybe could have kind of made a game of it. It was really strange of Kane to only bring back the Zerglings. They do absolutely nothing without some support just because the force fields can completely nullify them. But yeah, with those Stalkers going down, it doesn't really matter one way or the other.
Yep, that is very true indeed. It was really a last-ditch effort. I think the army was maybe deceptively strong in the sense that it looked like it was going to absolutely wreck that base. The spine crawlers went down very quickly. +3 had kicked in, but the reality of it was there were just so many more forces on the map there for Kane, and he was still sitting on about 70 drones, whereas his opponent was on 20 probes by that point. So what use is a warp prism if you can't afford anything to warp in?
Yeah, at that point, it was very much so a last-ditch effort. That was a much more standard game by Minigun standards. He likes to play very, very greedy, and then just instead of trying to defend, he just puts pressure on his opponent and tries to distract them from killing him until the economy actually kicks in. So that was more of what we would expect to see. But I'm very surprised he chose that map to do it on. That would have made perfect sense on a map like Belshir, but on Polar Night, it's just such an aggressive map. It's so small, and especially for a Zerg who will play as aggressive as Kane, that you're really leaving yourself very open to counterattacks there. Plus, the early game was so terrible for him, playing up against that 3-hatchery before pool, and then having the DT scouted immediately. Minigun has not had a lot of luck thus far this series.
No, he has not. And he has chosen yet another Frosty map. In fact, Frost, one of the larger maps in the map pool, to go up against his opponent in what could very well be his last map of the tournament, which would be a pretty disastrous bomb out, I think, for him, if that were to happen.
Yeah, it would be. That's definitely not. But, you know, it's an 8-man tournament with pretty much the 8 best players in North America in single limb, so you're going to have 3 to 4 pretty good players go out in the first round. So.
That is very true. Certainly no question about that. Now, if this does end up being a 3-0, folks, then I'm afraid we will be going on to the next matchup. I say afraid, it's going to be a great matchup. It will actually be Huck versus DeMuslim, since we cannot go on to Scarlet versus Hitman, because Scarlet is currently playing against Jaedong. So we will make our best effort at actually doing a schedule around this other tournament, which was unfortunately heavily delayed over the last couple of days. But we'll make a good show for you nonetheless, and I would strongly suggest if you have 2 screens that you go and watch NorthCon as well, because that is a great series going on. It's a Zerg versus Zerg. It might not take very long, especially since we are talking about a little bit of Jaedong versus Zerg going on right there.
Yeah, it looks like Jaedong is actually up 1-0 already, unfortunately, on Scarlet. That would be kind of interesting if she ends up having to play immediately after losing the finals, because winning a major tournament to her is pretty much absolutely everything at this point. She's accomplished everything short of that. She's pretty much the consensus best foreigner. She's been playing absolutely amazing, but she still doesn't have a big tournament win. So she gets to the finals and then actually still loses and then has to play this match. And especially against someone as frustrating as Hitman. I would not envy her in that situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing to do. At the end of the day, she chose to participate in both tournaments, and that can be risky. We've actually seen players, even in the original SHOUTcraft America, try and do that, and it has shaken them up more than they expected, and they've ended up underperforming as a direct result, but that's up to her. Folks, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be bringing you Game 3 of Minigun versus the reigning champion, Kane. It's going to be on Frost. You are watching SHOUTcraft America Winter, brought to you by Ting.com. And here is a word from our sponsors.
Somewhere along the line, cell phone plans got a bit weird. Customers actually get penalized for using more. Unlimited mostly means paying for stuff you don't need. If you want help, it's hiding behind a phone tree. Ting is changing that. Use as much or as little as you want. Pay a fair price for whatever you use. Give us a call, and a real person will pick up and help you out. Lower your phone bills? Love your phone company. Go to shoutcraft.ting.com and get a $25 credit today.
Ooh, Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? I came into this country to live a life of trouble. But ever since I got here, man, my blood pressure has doubled. These promises of freedom and the memory attraction turned out to be a bunch of crap and misleading distractions. My cousin is an idiot. He's always in a mess, and cleaning up his problems is a constant source of stress. And every time I'm on a job, he won't leave me alone. Every hour, every minute, man, he rings my bloody phone. Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? And afterwards we'll go get drunk and go rock-a-rolling. Cousin, it's your cousin. Let's get the bleeder burger and wash away the taste of all that carnage, crime and murder. Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? I can't believe this. Ooh, Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? Yeah. Roman, what the hell? Now is really not the time. I'm kind of in the middle of a quite demanding crime. I'm driving like a maniac. I'm on a high-speed chase, and you want me to desist so you can stuff your fatty face? Why don't you phone these cops and tell them to calm down? And maybe then I'll have the time to ferry you around. I'll phone you when it's over, if I don't hit a wall. And then I'll show you just where you can stick your bowling balls. Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? And afterwards we'll go get drunk and go rock-a-rolling. Cousin, it's your cousin. Let's get the bleeder burger and wash away the taste of all that carnage, crime and murder. Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? I nasi Roma, no blood clot scene. Nico, it's your cousin. Why don't you take me bowling? Great, another freeloading shit. Yeah. I've got 99 problems, and a fat idiot cousin is definitely one.
Suspect heading east on outbound Bridge. Now heading east towards a bowling alley in South River. In pursuit.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SHOUTcraft America Winter, Game 3. Game 3. As you can hear, actually, there's a battle going on in the background. It's great. That's Minigun just smashing his keyboard on the table right there after having his DT scouted. It's what I imagine, anyway.
Those are frustrating games. I'm not at all surprised that you would be doing that right now.
No, we actually had quite a few losses of keyboards, so if we can have a moment of silence for the loss of QXC's keyboard for a second time during the qualifiers for this tournament. I could not help but feel bad for him. He was playing really, really well, and if just a few losses towards the end of the qualifier is really all you need to just get kicked out of the running for this particular thing?
Well, people think of North America as like the weakest region, but if you look at this lineup, there's so many strong players, and having to fight with them for 8 spots, I don't know, pretty much anyone is prone to miss out on that. Especially given how annoying it can be to actually compete on a ladder. That is one of the more interesting parts of this. Actually trying to compete and place on a ladder can be one of the most frustrating things, because you'll have people aiming to knock you out. You'll have people playing to abuse the ladder, and then just the naturally... it's hard to play on a ladder. There's so many different things that can happen. It's such a different competitive situation from a tournament. You never know what's going to happen.
Very, very true. Well, map number 3 for this series, which could end up being a 3-0 pretty quickly, will be Frost. And we're going to be going into this one momentarily. The freedom is getting to Minigun's head. I think he actually got scared because he's gone right back to dark blue again.
He needs the comfort of the familiarity.
Yeah, he lost 2 games with different colors. Like, all right, I gotta get my head together. I'm gonna go back to something that's familiar, that feels okay.
Frost is actually a really interesting choice. To go from choosing Polar Knight to choosing Frost, unless this is Kane's map pick?
It is not. It is very much not. Loser picks.
Okay, so yeah, that's very, very strange, because that's like the 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. And they did get diagonal positions, so that even exacerbates it. But just generally speaking, this is one of the biggest maps being played in competition right now. And Polar Knight is one of the smallest, most aggressive. So this is a big switch up in strategy from Minigun. But on the last map, he did go for a very greedy build. He was going for that 2-base all-in with the DTs, and then canceled it once the guy scouted and put down that 3rd Nexus. So maybe he's going to do the 2-base all-in on here, and he's just messing with Kane's mind. I don't know. It's a very strange map pick to me.
I'm interested to see how it goes, and we're going to see. Will Minigun be able to pull it back against his former teammate, or will Kane take a 3-0 sweep to go straight into tomorrow in order to try and defend his title as SHOUTcraft America Champion in the semi-finals? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Root Minigun. He is in the blue trunks, and he is playing Protoss to the southwest of Frost LE, courtesy of Gameheart, versus his opponent up to the northeast position, who's looked kind of on another level throughout this already. I wonder how much that European training is really paying off for him. The lag is clearly not stopping him at all. It is My Insanity Kane.
Last game we talked about whether or not losing that game, losing that first game in that fashion would affect Minigun's mindset and kind of mess him. But I didn't really think so. But after 2 losses like that, that can definitely start to get to you. Especially because last game he was playing his game. Like, if you had to describe a Minigun style of PvZ, I would say that was it. The very fast 3rd base, the Warp Prism to try and buy yourself time, the really greedy economical play early on. And it just didn't work at all. Kane was completely ready for it. He just brushed off the Warp Prism and did his own aggression anyway. A fake cannon rush coming out from Minigun here. He does have... Oh, he's actually going Gateway first, so it's 100% fake. Even if that finishes, he's not going to drop a cannon.
Yeah, I wonder
but
if Kane...
Minigun at this point... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, will Kane overreact to it? But I think he's figured it out already. He pulled 3 drones off the line, then immediately said, no, I don't believe that's real.
Yeah, even if he knew right from the start that it was just going to be a fake, you can never really underestimate it, because even if the Protoss doesn't intend to invest in the cannon rush, if they just get 1 or 2 cannons up in a good position, it's going to end up being cost efficient anyway. So not at all an overreaction by him there to pull down those extra drones. But the Forge is just now coming up, so obviously no real threat there. And a very early 3rd hatchery coming out from Kane. So despite the fact that he hasn't scouted, he knows this is a gigantic map. His opponent dropped that pylon. He's probably going for Forge FE. Might as well take that super early 3rd base.
Yeah, what exactly is stopping you from doing that? There's no probe out on the map as far as he knows. Funnily enough, the one that placed that pylon did actually escape with only 5 hit points remaining and is currently chilling by the Zelnaga watchtower up to the north of the map. A Ling is going to spot it. Minigun actually immediately reacts, which is quite nice, and that Ling will not be able to catch up to it. There's actually no speed on the way. Gas is only now just being taken here for Kane.
A reasonably early gas. That's early enough that he's probably going to go speedling before his lair and try and get some map control with it. And given that his opponent didn't go gateway expansion, he's not really going to have to worry about anything too early. So this is going to be a very comfortable opening for Kane. He's pretty much gotten away with everything he wants. He seems to have a pretty good handle on what's going on. And we don't see any commitment yet from Minigun. He has Warp Gate started, of course, and he's actually getting Stalker out quickly. Usually when you go a Stalker first, that is to go harass your opponent, get some scouting information, just try and annoy them, because without speedling out, the Stalker is essentially invulnerable. But last game we saw him go a very quick Stalker just to deny Overlord scouting, and then try and do some kind of very fast tech cheese. But a quick +1 start, so I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think he's going to play a little bit more normally here.
Yeah, certainly sinking his early gas into that and having his really safe wall at the front here. I wonder what exactly we'll see after that. Stargate is actually what I was about to suggest that we might end up seeing there. Now, while there's been a lot of hype behind the Oracle, I haven't been seeing a massive amount of use of it in this particular matchup at the kind of pro level. It's been used quite a little bit versus Terran, not necessarily so much against Zerg. Do you think Oracle's a possibility here, or we're going to be seeing Phoenix or Void Ray?
I think it's reasonably popular amongst Protosses to get one early Oracle just to go, and it's kind of like, well, it's going to get there so fast. If they actually have 3 Spore Crawlers down by the time my Oracle is there, then it kind of pays for itself anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a Drone Killer. It's kind of like a cheaper, faster Banshee. You might as well get it because it's almost going to pay for itself. So we definitely could see that. But personally, I think the quick 5 Phoenix, the more normal standard opener, and that does seem to be what he's going for. I actually kind of prefer that just because it's so powerful having those Phoenix running around. I feel like they do more for you than the Oracle is going to. Well,
Kane's scouting is, as always, perfect. The Zealot is going to get shut down quite easily there, but the Overlord does end up seeing the Stargate before it dies, so it's pretty much what he wanted.
Yeah, this is the kind of opening for Protoss that it's better if they don't scout it. It'd be nice if your Phoenix were a surprise and got a bunch of drone kills. But even if it's not a surprise, the Phoenix are going to end up paying for themselves almost 100%. They give you so much map control, so much harassment potential. They're just, I would really say that this is the ideal generic PvZ opener. This is what you should go for if you don't want to take any risks, if you don't want to do anything fancy or special. Phoenix are almost always going to end up paying for themselves in one way or another. So Kane, of course, he's going to have those Spore Crawlers up. He's not going to take initial damage, but over time, they are going to pay for themselves. It's a very solid opener. And quite a few Speedlings coming out. Going to try and deny that third base, but Minigun not even going for it yet. But that's really smart play. That's a lot of Zerglings, actually. This really shows that Kane knows Minigun style. Minigun loves taking those risky early thirds, even if he is doing some kind of tech behind it. And Kane kind of tried to blind counter that, but he's not going to be able to accomplish anything now. He's just going to run up against the wall then. So that's a lot of larvae that he invested those Zerglings that aren't going towards his economy.
Yeah, and as a result, he actually has less drones. You just saw him throw a bunch of them into buildings, so he's got Baneling Nest coming up, Roach Warren, a couple more Extractors working on +1 melee as well. And what we are actually seeing a really quick Colossus coming out here, which is an interesting style. It's something that I believe we saw from Jim quite a bit in WCS, where you've got a decent amount of Phoenix, like 5 Phoenix, and then kind of Colossus play after that.
Yeah, this is really popular right now because so many Zergs are doing Ling Hydra timings into Muta Switch. So if you do this, you get that Colossus out. Colossus obviously shuts down the Hydra Ling timing, and then it gives you the potential to do a Colossus attack of your own, or you already have that Stargate up to just macro out a bunch of Phoenix and deal with the Muta Switch. In this specific case, he has a Baneling Nest going up. I'm not really sure what he's planning on doing with that, but he does have the Spire coming, so probably pretty quick Mutas. And with that third Nexus coming down, and actually only 1 sentry there, these Zerglings they're definitely going to force a cancel on the Nexus.
Yeah, certainly, and there goes the cancel. The Zealots will be able to acquit themselves admirably, especially with the +1 and no +1 Carapace done there, but Minigun was fully focused on defending that, as you can see, because the Phoenixes were hanging around doing really nothing. A second Stargate is coming up behind this, and a Colossus. He did build the Robo fairly early and then just didn't really do anything with it. Now he's actually transitioning with some Void Rays.
And he actually loses a Phoenix to the Queen. It's really sloppy. He does manage to catch a Queen, which is nice for him. Kind of sloppy losing that Phoenix. More and more lanes coming out, and this could be kind of scary for Minigun. He's investing so heavily into the Colossus and the Void Rays, the mid-game tech. He only has like 6 Zealots here, and he doesn't have a cannon finished or anything, and he doesn't even have a wall in around the building cannon. So these Lings and Banelings could actually be the end of him here.
I was going to say, I think Kane's given us a little bit of a show with the orange Banelings that I was looking for earlier, and is going to crash them right into, trying to crash them at Zealots. There they go, and this third is under an awful lot of pressure. A Colossus comes in, but not quick enough to save the third base. That is cancelled a second time. Admittedly, this whole Ling Baneling style is not going to work once the Colossus count gets reasonably high.
Yeah, as good as that looked, and as scary as it kind of was, I don't like the Banelings there. I think if he only had Lings and he went in and forced that cancel, that'd be great for him. And some Corruptors out, actually, dying to the Phoenix. He needs to run those Phoenix away before they die as well, though. But he invested a lot of Banelings into that cancel, and it wasn't really worth it for him, I don't think. If we look at the Harvester count, they're dead even right now. And those Phoenix forced Kane to produce Corruptors instead of Mutas, which means he's not really getting too much map control. or aggression out of them. And it looks like he's actually just going to continue investing in the Ling Baneling attacks. Both Colossus, Void Rays, Zealots, Cannons. It's hitting a tipping point here where if Kayn doesn't start doing really lethal damage, he's going to end up falling behind real quick. And the Phoenix actually scout the attack, so this could go pretty good for Minigun if he's careful.
Yeah, I'm liking the fact that he's also building double Void Rays at a time, knowing that the Corruptor's there. Void Ray Colossus can work surprisingly well, especially at this point before Hive Tech and before Vipers come out, because really, what else are you going to use against Colossus? You got to use those Corruptors. Ooh, almost ended up breaking his way through there. Run by would be pretty effective here, but I mean, I can't see this doing anything whatsoever, and it doesn't.
All those Banelings die for like 2 sentries. He is focusing down the Colossus, but he's going to lose all of his Corruptors for it.
Yeah.
Those Voiders, yeah, this is really just not good at all for Kayn. This is kind of what I was worried was going to happen last game, except he didn't have the early game advantage to go with it.
Yeah.
He just, I don't know why he goes so aggressive against a player who plays as defensively and as well as Minigun. If Minigun takes the 3rd base, he's going to hold on to it. I don't know. And he's continuing to go for it, so he's basically just all inning here, morphing more Banelings here. He feels like, because he killed the Colossus with that previous attack, he may be able to break through on the ground now, but without that many Void Rays out, I think he's just going to kind of kill everything.
Yeah, we're even seeing Banelings just grabbed out of the air, no problem whatsoever, so that's all being dealt with. An attempt to take another base here by Kayn sort of out of the way, hoping that his opponent won't notice it, but Minigun is probably for the first time in the series in a decent spot. Anion Pulse Crystals on the way, or Onion Pulse Crystals, I like to say, and Warp Prism there as well. Call them Onion Pulse Crystals because it just causes a lot of Zerg tears, I gotta say.
that they do. And he's actually going Muta. I don't know, he saw the Void Rays, he decided to go Muted to try and deal with that. Even that would be pretty hard because there's so many Void Rays. But Minigun with really good game sense, before he even scouted that, he had already switched into Phoenix as well as the Phoenix range upgrade, so he absolutely knew that that was what Kayn was going to go for. And I said before the match, I don't know how much these two guys actually trained together while they were en route, but it definitely seems like they're both very, very comfortable with each other's styles. They both seem to have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. And that Phoenix switch preemptively just kind of shuts down any chance Kayn had of making anything happen with those mutas. And it's a big map. He's expanding a lot. He has really good map control. So that's the one thing he kind of has going for him. But Minigun's economy, tech, production, just so strong right now. Any kind of timing before Hive is going to be really difficult for Kayn to hold off. He's going to have to go for counterattacks, I think.
Yep, Warp Prism gets shut down there, so nice little grab by Kayn, but as you said before, I mean, come on, 11 Mutas versus 9 Phoenix with +2 air weapon on the way, and Anion Pulse Crystals. Even with Corruptors, that's not enough to fight that, and obviously we're going to have to see some decent control here by Minigun, but for the most part, as long as you're pressing backwards, you're fine in that scenario. Your guys are going to keep shooting, you're not going to have any problems whatsoever, and any attempted aggression by Kayn is suicidal here, really, I think, with Lings and Banelings. Where did he go from? Oh, well, there's the answer to that. He's going to try for Infestors, which to me is a little bit of a Hail Mary. You've got to land those fungals in order to really make that work, and if you don't, then you might as well kiss your bases goodbye.
Yeah, he just doesn't have anything that's actually going to kill the Void Rays, even if he gets them locked down. Corruptors they're just not good against Void Rays,
no.
Kind of flat out. He would like to be making a bunch of mutas, look for a fungal, kill all the Void Rays with the mutas, but with that Phoenix tech switch, that's not really going to happen. Maybe if he catches all the Phoenix in a big fungal, he can do something. But there's so many Phoenix here, he can just kind of run through and ignore the Corruptors and kill off all the mutas. And Corruptors in good numbers are okay at zoning out Phoenix, but they're never ever good at killing them. So Minigun can kind of just dance around him all day, taking little bits of damage to his shields and killing off all the mutas. And with the mutas gone, the Void Rays are going to reign absolutely supreme. Short of a big Ling run by, and Minigun's playing pretty defensively, I don't see him allowing that to happen. Oh, and he just continually scouts out the attacks before they even happen. As unlucky as Minigun was getting the previous 2 games, he's kind of making up for it here, along with really good play on his part.
Yeah, it's been rock solid for him. He's looking in a really good position. That 4th base has got it pretty much uncontested at this point. The Mutas can't really do much. There's a 2nd Spire on the way here, which indicates that he'd, of course, want to go into double upgrades, really kind of heavy Sky Zerg style, but I would not be doing that in this position. We did see Scarlet successfully pull that off at the Red Bull Battlegrounds in New York, but she did it a lot earlier, and she did it a lot better as well.
Yeah, and there's actually a big Ling attack at the third base while this is happening, and Minigun's kind of choosing to all in. He's just sacrificing the third base, gonna go for the kill, and it's gonna work. I don't see any way Kane could possibly fight this gigantic, scary Protoss army right now. All the Phoenix, or all the Infestors are not even happening, so.
That's brutal. I love the
That's
decision to put a single Colossus in there as well, so that big kind of Baneling attack just won't really do anything. The DTs are trying to save this. I mean, he is making a concerted effort to save this Nexus, and he actually will. It's going to end on a couple of hundred HP, and in comes the Sky Toss, and the Golden Fleet has certainly arrived here. There's really not an awful lot that Kane is going to be able to do. There's a huge amount of Zealots on the ground here. The Air Force is scary enough in and of itself. The Lings are just running to their death, and the nail in Kane's coffin for this map anyway looks like it is going to be landing pretty shortly. Kane's army, in fact, is just trying to go for a base trade at this stage.
Yeah, he knows. You just one look at that Protoss army, you know you're not going to fight it with 10 mutas and some supporting corruptors. So he goes for the base race, but just so much DPS from Minigun. He wins that almost for sure. Although Minigun's actually taking the kind of strange decision to split up his army, half defend, half attack. I don't know if he has enough Phoenix to actually deal with those corruptors. So it's just kind of a waste to send Stun back. But he is splitting up, killing off all the bases at once, and he has enough cannons and SAG defense and just production and army. Just enough of everything. I still feel like he's probably going to hold this off and still be pretty okay. But a smart decision for Kane to go for that base race. That was absolutely the only choice he had at that point.
Yeah, I mean, both are now in an extremely low economy situation. Army supply is heavily in favor of the Protoss, however. And if those Void Rays stay alive, then these Corruptors are really not going to do all that much, I'm afraid. And there's the GG, and Minigun is right back in the series after a really, really solid build there. And I have to wonder if this was kind of his last-ditch build. You did mention that it was a little weird that he picked Frost.
It was weird because of the way he had been playing earlier and the builds he'd been looking for earlier in the series. He had been playing very two-base oriented, very kind of cheesy, if anything. But for Minigun, just in a vacuum, the choice of Frost isn't that weird to me. Like I said, he really likes playing greedy early on. He likes to spread the map out and kind of distract the Zerg as he builds up a big death ball. That's been kind of his go-to style if he doesn't do some kind of two-base aggression. So I like that. I feel like that's what he should be doing. He should be sticking to what he's comfortable with. I'm not really sure what he was thinking the first two games. I'm not sure. Maybe he's intimidated by Kane. Maybe he usually loses in practice games and he was trying to do something weird. But I would absolutely say keep going for macro games. It really seems to work. Kane, almost suicidally aggressive both the last two games. It ended up working out on Polar Knight, but it was a bit risky. And then last game, just falling flat on his face with that kind of thing. Just invite him to keep doing that if you're in Minigun shoes.
Yeah, certainly. All right, well, the next map is, for the first time in this series, going to be Kane's choice. It's going to be Derelict Watcher. What do you think about this?
I like this. This is much more in the vein of Frost than a Polar Knight or anything like that. I would say this is... Some people say the third base is a little bit hard to secure for Protoss on here. There is that open area between the natural and the third where you can do layer ground-based timing attacks. But I don't think that's too big of a deal. I think Minigun is going to be more than capable of holding on to a quick third base here. I think he goes for that. Maybe even the exact same thing as last game. You just open up Stargate into the third base into a air-based death ball. I think that worked out really well. I think this map is pretty conducive to it. I don't see why it wouldn't work again. I think you should try that.
Well, Kane is probably regretting his choice of 3D unit portrait for the Versus screen, which actually was the pilot of a Void Ray. So, a little poetic. Funnily enough, all of the Zerg players in this tournament decided to pick a Protoss unit as their avatar. I'm not as surprised by that as I feel I should be, really.
Not at all surprised, honestly. It can be a frustrating matchup for the time being.
Indeed, that is very, very true. Do you feel like right now it's a balanced matchup, though? Because for all the hype, I suppose, the Protoss has been getting over the last couple of months, we've been seeing a surprising amount of Zerg success.
It swings back and forth through different periods in the game. On any kind of aggressive map, any kind of smaller two-base map, Protoss has a lot of potential early on to just do damage to the Zerg in any number of different ways. If you survive that in good footing, then you have really powerful mid-game timing attacks as Zerg. As long as you scout well and check whether they're going Colossus or Immortal and modify your composition accordingly, you can do a lot of damage with Roaches or Hydras. And then if you get your opponent off balance at all, you can just switch into Muta and snowball the game from there. But if, on the other hand, if Protoss holds on and just kind of gets up to their death ball, they just kind of win. So it's a very frustrating game as Zerg. You have the tools to win, and it's kind of in your hands. But if Protoss just survives, you're basically racing against the clock, and it's always uncomfortable, at least for me, to play that kind of game.
Awesome. Well, I want to ask you actually about a particular style that we've been seeing at NorthCon up to this point, but first let me introduce our players here on Derelict Watcher. To the north